What's going on, everybody? You get Jeremy today because we're going to go over the results of the Turbo Demon. I know you guys have waited a couple weeks for it. We have a ton of pulls on it. Ton of data. Hey, we're going live, guys. Quiet. Sorry. Two puppies playing. So yeah, we're going to head out, do our shop updates, and then we're going to go over. I'm going to review what we found out with the Demon compared to other compound setups and kind of see where it goes. So if you're checking in, go ahead and throw some guesses out. We're good? All right. Throw some guesses out and what you think it is. It'd be one of the last things I cover, so we'll head on out and review what we got going on in the shop as we head over. Busy brother there. Ooh, wonder what he's doing. Got a little Charger RT action, getting a Pro Charger put on. This is one of the cleanest ones we have seen in here. This thing has no miles on it. It looks like it's never been driven. It's outstanding. Old bumpers off the shop car. Remember, it's for sale. Bumpers are complete. Like I said, I got brand new OEM bumpers, painted them OEM black, rewrapped them, so there's no holes in them. So here she is. 200 miles on the car before I got it. Probably close to 300 now from the dyno. So we did a ton of testing on her. So we'll go over and see the good stuff everybody likes to see. And there it is. Helium twin 68 millimeter setup. And it's basically a stock Demon170 otherwise with the fuel system upgrades. ID 1700s. During the testing, we were running 118 leaded and oxygenated race gas. And that was by choice. We are going to be utilizing the flex fuel capabilities on it for normal street stuff, but when they go to the racetracks, they wanted to utilize the 118 oxygenated gas. So yeah, so basically 4 triple pump system, ID 1700s, and then twin 68 millimeter turbos, stock pulley combination. So what it outputted was essentially. We'll go over that here in a minute. Now, a couple things that we did during the testing. We, the big killer of power on a compound boost setup or any turbo setup is going to be the catback. Now, they had a proper 3-inch catback on here, but we did opt to remove the catback for testing. What it did at the same wastegate boost setting is it actually dropped about 1.5 pounds of boost. So just goes to show you the benefits of a very free-flowing. And yeah, so we did verify that it dropped 1.5 pounds of boost. So what we did discover on this car is that with the compound boost setup, we got it down to where on wastegate it would peak at about 25 PSI right on the hit, and then it would taper down to 22.5. So naturally on an unloaded dyno like what we have, we will see boost drop off like that on the dyno, so we have to manipulate the boost controller. But that's where our base setting was. It's nice because the peak boost that it was seeing was equal to that of what a stock Demon170 runs, right? So that gave us a very good base. Now, it made a good amount of torque naturally being a little bit higher boost. So if you guys don't know, they make about 22 pounds of boost from the factory. So having the ability to drop it down like that was good. So what we ended up doing is utilizing the boost controller as we do to increase the boost. Now, this is where you got to be careful, right? Demon170 makes 22 pounds of boost in stock form. On average, they're about 930 wheel horsepower is what they're producing stock we see on good E85. So that being said, we got our numbers very close to that in regards when we put normal timing into it and everything. We were right around there. The torque was higher because of the fact we had a little extra boost. Now, normally when we do compound boost setup, we have a lower base to start with, and what we're trying to do is add as much boost as we can without spinning the blower faster, right? Now, on this one, having a base of 22 PSI, that tells us that this blower RPM is pretty high. They do have a smaller pulley than normal Hellcats on it to achieve the 22 pounds of boost. Also, it's a 3-liter blower, so it's a massive rotor pack that you have to spin. We also have learned that lower mileage cars, it takes some time for everything to kind of break in, right? So we slowly turn the boost up. Now, when you assess what upgrades they did to the Demon170, these motors aren't like a billet bottom end 426 and everything like that, right? It's just kind of a reinforced red eye long block. You know, they upgraded the main caps, rods, pistons a little bit, just a little, okay? These aren't massively built motors, right? So normally we don't like to take boost too high. On Hellcats red eyes, the highest I'll go on a stock bottom end setup is about 26 pounds for a glory pull. When I give that boost setting to a customer, I even tell them it's no guarantee it's going to live that long, right? So on this setup, you know, keeping in touch with the customers, we went along with it. I was slowly adding boost, adjusting timing, adjusting fueling. What I can tell you, Demon170s do not tune like a normal Hellcat. So I know it's very secretive right now, but their logistics and their computers are very, very different. So it did take us a little bit to get used to that, but we got it down now, so any future ones are going to be easy. Once you got that figured out, we have to try and find that combination of timing and boost, right? We can't turn the boost up to 33 pounds of boost, 34 pounds of boost. We're going to lift a head, you know, blow a head gasket out of it, something along those lines. So we have to be careful. Timing, right? It's that combination. Don't want to run a ton of timing in it. Again, it's not a massively built motor, okay? So, give you an example on the from the Demon170 in stock form. You know, you might see upwards of 18 degrees of timing on there when you have 100%, or I should say E85 in a very good ethanol, right? So giving you an idea, 930 to the wheels, about 18, 19 degrees of timing on good E85 is where they fall stock. So when it comes to compound boost, part of the flexibility is being able to add boost. Well, I don't have a massively built motor, so we are going to be limited on what we can add. Back and forth with the customer, hoping for big numbers, hoping to turn it up, push it a little bit, understandable. But this is where, you know, we always share the results of compound boost and just being transparent. Big blower, big rotor pack, spinning kind of fast, 22 pounds is what it's producing. We knew we were going to face some challenges with it. So how much boost do we run in it? Well, I ended up taking it to about 28 and a half, just under 29 pounds of boost. Playing with the boost controller, I was able to get it to hit there, pretty much flat line out. So how much power did it make? We're going to say this car on my dyno would have made about 930 to the wheels for everybody to see, okay? So that's about where our starting point is. And the torque on it is probably, I would say, generally around 890, 880, 890, okay? So I have 28, we'll say 28 and a half pounds of boost flat on this thing. I got the air fuel dialed in, got to a point where I had very conservative timing, and then I, you know, leaned it out a little, see what the horsepower gain was, if there was any, and I found a happy point for it based on the fuel that was being run. So AFR's on the money. Timing-wise, started basically with their base timing table, pulled it out with what they saw, adjusted a few things because of turbos, the way they work and how they spool up. We got to pull some timing in little areas to aid with that. But got it to a point where the dyno graph I'm going to show you is going to reflect that this is what I would consider an aggressive tune. And I did talk to the customer about this. So this is an aggressive tune in it. Because he was trying for numbers. So I wouldn't run this on a daily basis. I discussed it with him. I will say that, you know, peak timing out of it was about 16 degrees. And the boost, like I said, at the post intercooler, and you're going to see here, is right at about 28 and a half, 29 pounds. Okay, so I'm going to flip it around so you guys can see. So that's where we fell. All right, so again, we're going to say this particular Demon170 is going to be right around on my dyno would be about a 930 to the wheels, okay? So she maxed out at 991 wheel horsepower and about 1020 foot-pounds of torque. Now, this is another thing that we have learned. Look at that boost, 32 pounds. And you can see the boost curve dropped a little bit in the middle, not bad, and then picked back up, right? So pretty flat boost curve. Now, you heard me saying that, you know, we made 28 pounds of boost, right? 28 and a half. But you just saw a graph that showed 32. Why? What we learned is the intercooler bricks are actually very restrictive. Now, mind you, we're running a lot of boost through it, but essentially what we were seeing to achieve 28 28.5 pounds of boost on it, we needed to pump upwards of 32 pounds of boost on top of the intercooler. So the boost actually entering into the engine was about 28.5 pounds, like we were saying earlier. So that's another thing to consider, because when you compress air, your temperatures are going to skyrocket, right? So when you have an inefficient intercooler setup like that, naturally you're going to see what you're seeing there. We have hot air being forced through an intercooler that can't keep up, even with the chiller on it. My intake air temps prior to the intercooler were exceeding about 170, 180 degrees. Going through the intercooler after a dyno pull, just a very, very quick dyno pull, it would get up to about 110 to 130 depending on the downtime it had. And to give you an example, that 990 wheel horsepower dyno pull is just under 3 seconds. So a 3-second pull in 5th gear, this thing was seeing 120, 130 degree intake temps. So then you're going to compound that when you're doing a quarter mile pass in it. Essentially this power is just going to drop as you go down the track. So this would be a race only tune, controlled conditions. I wouldn't daily drive on this. And it just goes to show you compound boost is not for everybody. It's not going to achieve amazing results like everybody thinks, right? So let's go over the reasons why. Okay. So we have a big blower, big rotors. They're hard to spin, parasitic drain. We're going to do a little comparison here and kind of break down how can we improve this, right? What can we do? Naturally, if we take the blower off, we're going to see several hundred horsepower increase, right? And the big thing you got to consider going into this is, what would a ported 2.4 blower make on a Hellcat, right? A ported 2.4 with a 266 upper, 10% lower. We see on a stock car about maybe 24 pounds of boost, and we can make 1,050 to the wheels. So what that shows you there is, this blower sure is down 2 pounds, at 22, but it's only making 930 wheel. Reason being is it's a big rotor pack, right? So that's one of those things where these are all things that do need to be considered when we're looking for results and where it's beneficial and where it's not, right? So what I'm going to show you guys now too, to give a little more clear picture on here, is another compound boost setup that we did, and this is out of a Trackhawk, so it actually has more parasitic drain, and it was using a 2.4 blower. So we had a little bit less boost down low, and then boost kind of equaled up top. So it was actually only 26 pounds of boost. Now it's a built motor of 420, so it's going to be inflated a little bit, but you're going to see that the massive difference of what happens here. If we were to essentially pull the 3 liter blower off and put a 2.4 on, ready? So massive difference. Boost levels are, like I said, the Trackhawk actually ran about the same boost level post intercooler, but it just goes to show you. This one had cutouts on it, and we're making 200, a ton more horsepower, right? 220 give or take, 230. So 230 more peak. You can see down low where the boost, as I ramped it in, because the blower itself on a 2.4, the way it was pulleyed, makes a lot less boost on its own, to where the blower of the 3 liter makes more boost down low. So you can see how it kicks in differently there, and the lag per se. Both these vehicles had 68 millimeter turbos as well. So this is, the only difference is a big motor out of the Trackhawk, but again, Trackhawk has more drivetrain loss. At the end of the day, the amount of boost entering is very close to the same. So just goes to show you, if we were to pull that 3 liter blower off, where it might go, right? You could put a 2.4 on, but as discussed with the customer, if you're going to pull it off, might as well go to an intake, right? Get rid of the blower altogether, and at 28 pounds of boost out of that motor, that thing's going to make well over 1,300, 1,350 to the wheels. But we'd be able to drop it down to 22 pounds of boost and make 1,100, 1,200 at the same boost level it does stock with a 3 liter blower. So it just shows you that when doing a compound setup, you don't necessarily want to have a massive blower, right? So have a 3.8 liter blower or 3.0 blower, and then try to compound boost it, it doesn't necessarily translate to being extremely beneficial. And it's not that the blower is a restriction. It is the fact that it's just inefficient due to the parasitic drain that gets added. You spin a 3.8 liter blower and make 20 pounds of boost or even 15 pounds of boost. Those rotors are heavy. They take a lot of force, a lot of energy to spin. So you're going to naturally make less horsepower at the same given boost level, which is exactly what we're seeing here. So 28 pounds of boost out of that. And like I said, all we were able to get was 990. Both of the cars had radials on it. Obviously, the radial on the Demon's going to be a little taller, so you're going to lose horsepower there. I'm sure if I put a street tire on, the horsepower and torque would balance out a little better, but still at the end of the day, it's not a massive jump. It's to the point where it's probably almost more beneficial to just pulley down to gain 4 or 5 pounds of boost instead of 6 pounds of boost from a massive turbo setup. But if we take that blower off, now you're talking. So this is great data for those that are curious on, hey, should I get a Whipple and then throw a compound boost setup? Should I get a 3.8 and do it? No, because you're just battling the parasitic drain of that massive blower. So great data. Like I said, catback, we'll recap when we go in for those that are checking in late. So we'll go down for the could you, should you. We had some questions last week that came in after we got off, and we'll check that out. Look at that color. Oh, what's going on there? Come on over. I'll give you guys kind of a sneak peek what we got going on here. Pretty cool. So that there is the base to our 3D printed intake manifold. This is going to be an intake tube, so a cold air intake for a 108 millimeter Hellcat throttle body. Factory blower setup, so we're going to be making intakes as well. We also have this one pumping out over here where we're doing our prototype testing for our intake manifold. So Joe's going to hate me for showing that, but that's fine. All right, guys, we're going to head on in, get seated, and go over some questions. Oh, hey. Everybody, you have to check out Tulo's pants, by the way. You have to check them out. I had to say it.
The cargo pants, baby.
All right, let's get it. There we go.
I can put so much in these pants, including the keys for the shop car, which is for sale,
Logan,
and you should buy it.
Saying you can put so much in the pants.
Yeah,
they're pockets.
Be careful.
I can put things in my pockets, like the key to the shop car, which is for sale.
Yeah, for sale.
Yeah.
65, I mentioned it. So, all right, Rome, it's okay. So, quick recap for those that are checking in late. We went over, after this is posted, you can rewind it, but we went over the Demon170 results. Made 990 wheel, 1,020 foot-pounds of torque, with an additional 6 pounds of boost out of the turbo setup. We did learn that catback on a setup like this was good for 1.5 pounds of booster reduction. Didn't change the power output, it just dropped the boost level. So that's great. We want to, improve the efficiency. 2, the 3-liter blower is a parasitic drain like no other. So it was a battle, right? We have a lot of heat. We have big heavy rotors that we're battling to try and increase the boost on. It just was not extremely beneficial. I would, if somebody really wants to keep going on it, I'd be curious to, if we put a larger pulley on the 3-liter, slowed it down and see if that power would increase, because you're going to free up some of that parasitic drain. Right. So if we were to do like a 335 Rings of Hell on it, I'd be real curious to see if we see a boost increase if we go back to the 28 pounds of boost, because it's not spinning as fast. As we mentioned in our Q&A for compound boost last week, sometimes if the rotors are spinning too fast, it's too difficult to actually force air into it, and you just create more heat. So something we can consider. We learned that tuning a Demon170 is very, very, very different than a Hellcat. So I think that's part of the reason why you see shops testing on their own and not advertising too much on it, because there's a learning curve with it. Once you get it, you're fine. But overall, this vehicle and being involved with it provided us, Helion, and future Demon170 owners, and as well as anybody with the big blower, some great data, great information to help make a decision if this is the way to go or not. So this vehicle, did talk to the owner, will be back to test out one of our intake manifolds after it goes to SEMA. So we are looking forward to that. What better way to have back-to-back data than being in the same location and utilizing the same product?
Absolutely.
So, but that's what it is. It's not impressive. I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds beautiful. I will post up one of the videos like we do with the dyno sheet, and you'll get to hear the thing. It sounds amazing. I've had people walk by while I'm testing it. It's still going to be an 8-second car. It's just one of those. I don't think it's a valuable modification or a route to go if big horsepower is your objective. They built the Demon very well from the factory as is, and there's other ways to make more power more efficiently. But I do know this customer, and he's not stopping here, so it's going to be a great foundation for him for the future. So
tying into what you were talking about out there, so with the rotor pack, if it were to get custom rotors made of a different material, would that make sense, go like titanium rotors, or would it just be more beneficial to throw a 2.4 on?
It'd be more beneficial to throw a 2.4 because at the end of the day, well, one, the cost to make titanium rotors, nobody does that. So, you might save a little bit of weight, but the amount of money you're going to spend to go into that, you're still spinning a 3-liter blower, and at the speeds of what it's doing, there's going to be the resistance in the drain there. So can you improve it slightly? Sure. I think if you want to utilize that blower to slow the blower down, I bet you that would net more gains and allow for a bigger spread than what we were seeing. But I don't think doing titanium or redesigning a blower would be the way to go. Personally, me, like we did on the Trackhawk, we did a ported 2.4. Throw that bad boy on there, and but yeah, it makes 9 or 10 pounds, give or take, in stock form without the blower or the turbos. That's the way, and as you saw, how much more power it made in regards to where we're at. So no, don't redesign a blower to utilize what's available.
Is a no tune required pulley safe? Can you run it on stock injectors?
Great
Pros,
question.
Cons?
So so that's a good could you, should you? So can you run a sleeved pulley like the Predator? Absolutely. Now what you're doing is that by design, what that does is add 1 to 1.5 pounds of boost. The reason why they say they're no tune pulleys is because the boost level and airflow you're going to still is within OEM tables. So you think about it, the way they're designed is, they have to have for hot, cold weather and boost variances with altitude. So you're still within the realm of the factory tune. So yes, you can put it on. It's still safe to run without it. Now, what happens from there? One, cat over temp. We talk about it all the time. What you're doing is you're making more torque based on the factory calculations and everything like that. So what happens is you're going to introduce cat over temp protection much quicker. And that is what you're going to see where the short-term effects are great, but as the adaptives kick in, weather gets hotter, you're going to start noticing that if you watch your air fuel gauge in the vehicle, it's going to run richer and richer and richer, quicker and quicker. So the long-term effects end up starting to become negative, and that's why you read on the internet, just do an adaptive reset or unplug your battery because it resets those adaptives temporarily. And that type of mod without a tune is going to carry you on only for a certain amount of time before that kicks in. Stock injectors, technically on paper, they can handle it. We've had people run it and be okay. Newer vehicles have a little bit larger injectors. They started utilizing red-eye injectors in all Hellcats, so you have the capability there. The problem you start running into is the older vehicles, the fuel pumps are a little more tired, so factory boost levels and everything, they're okay. Once you introduce 1.5 pounds of boost in a car with 60,000 miles, the fuel pump might not be able to produce the same amount of flow that it did before. So over the years, every vehicle being a little different, right? I've had some freaks. I had a Trackhawk that made 740 to the wheels with that boost level, and he tapped out his stock injector, so we did have to go to injectors. So most vehicles, yes, could you, yes, should you, that's not a problem at all as long as you understand the limitations to it, but stock injectors normally are okay.
Okay. Can you daily a Hellcat with a nitrous setup?
Yeah,
could you, should you?
Yeah, could you? Absolutely. Should you? Sure. My wife had it on her Durango Hellcat.
Sure did.
So nitrous, just because it's installed doesn't mean it's on all the time. They have arming switches, and you can turn it on and off. Depending on the size of the shot you want to run, you'll have to run 2 different tunes, so that's entirely up to you. But is it one of those things you should have the nitrous armed and ready and firing every time you go wide open throttle? I mean, if you got a tune for it, go for it. You just got to fill that bottle up quickly. So, as long as it's installed correctly and, used correctly, there's no negatives to it other than the fact you have to fill the bottle up frequently. So, yeah, absolutely.
Question from last week tying into this week's discussion. 3.0 or 3.8 Whipple on a stock block, and then what about if planning on doing compound boost?
Perfect. So if you didn't catch with the dyno comparison and everything and in the recap, no, you shouldn't. Could you? Should you? Could you? No, I don't. There's no point. You're just adding stress onto your motor, so it's going to make less horsepower and more boost. So that's one of those things. You understand that just because it doesn't translate onto the dyno, the cylinder pressure and the explosion happening in the combustion chamber is the same. It's just it uses that horsepower elsewhere before it goes to the wheel. So that's why when you pull a blower off and make the same boost, it makes more power because you're just losing parasitic drain. You're not necessarily increasing cylinder pressure. So it's one of those, you put a 3.8 liter, Whipple on there, that thing is massive. It takes a lot of horsepower to spin it, and they're truly designed to make a lot of boost naturally by themselves. So if you're spinning one slowly, it's going to be hard on the engine as well. And, cubic inches will play a part. You got a 426 or something, sure, but again, like we did on the Trackhawk, he had a 3 liter Whipple. We took it off and put his 2.4 back on because the smaller the blower, we've said this in the Q&A, and same thing with turbos. You want to try and size it where you can get the smallest items in place to produce the power output that you want. So the 2.4 blower has been proven to flow very well. We just made 1200 wheel out of a Trackhawk, right? Mm-hmm. So you know what I mean? It's one of those, you want the smallest possible to reduce the parasitic drain and less struggle on the engine to have to spin that over. So absolutely no. If you ask me, I would tell you absolutely not. Do not put a 3 liter blower on. Don't put a 3.8. Don't put a 4.5. Don't do any of that. It's a complete waste, and you're just stressing your engine out more than you need to. So,
what about if it was a blower only setup? Stock Hellcat 3.0, 3.8, or just ported 2.4?
Again, size the blower to the Powerball. Mm-hmm. So daily driven, sure. I'm remote tuning a red eye that somebody put a 3.8 Whipple onto it and having me tune it, and they had to pulley it to a point where it's making about 21 pounds of boost. So you can do that on a 2.7 blower with an upper lower on it and send it off to be ported. So in comparison, because you're not really spinning that Whipple fast, I would say they're probably going to make the same power output. But the potential for that 3.8 Whipple to make less because it's a bigger rotor pack by a landslide. Again, it's based on your Powerball. The reason for a 3.8 is because the 3 liter won't make the power you need, right? The reason for a 3 liter is because the 2.7 won't make the power you need, and vice all the way down. If I buy another red eye, I'm yanking the 2.7 off, I'm selling it, and I'm getting a ported 2.4 to put on it. Because you can make the same power with a smaller blower. And it's just, again, it comes down to cylinder pressure and the amount of stress we're putting on something. The explosion is the same. It's an amount of restriction, right? The explosion is the same. It's just how much of it is being used elsewhere. So you can do it. Could you? Sure. Should you? If it achieves the power goal. Like I said, smallest blower to achieve your power goal is the ultimate target.
At what point would that bigger blower become beneficial?
So generally what we see in regards to like a daily drivable efficiency range, 950 to the wheels out of a 2.4 is where I like to cut it because you can make more, but you're really spinning it, and I wouldn't recommend to do that daily, right? The 2.7 blower, upwards of 1,000 just because they're a little bit bigger, but we also spin those slower. Again, going above that. The 3 liter is good reliably to about 1,100, give or take. Can you make more? Sure, but what you're doing is pumping hot air. So the amount of horsepower per pound of boost and the efficiency starts to drop because, like I said, as you spin something faster, two things happen. It takes more effort and it gets hotter. So that's why we call them hot air pumps at that point. And anybody that's done a lot of testing really won't go below a 325 up or 10 lower on a Hellcat platform because, sure, it makes a little bit more, but the temperatures get so hot. So if you're in a bracket event, we're going to have multiple. It takes more to cool down. So ultimately, 1,100 is where we cut it off. We've made 1,200. I just don't recommend it for everybody. And then, like I said, if you got to go above that, you can jump to the 3.8 and, run with that. Again, the negative effects to doing that is, if 1,300 is your goal, you have to have that blower pulleyed to 1,300 as you're driving down the street. So that blower, even though you're not wide open throttle at 2,000 RPM, is spinning like crazy. So daily driving temps get very hot. That's why turbos are great, and that's why... once we really start getting into big numbers and stuff like that, we discuss this with our customers, whether it is compound boost or not. We're all about efficiency. We're all about longevity. We're about reliability. And the battle with horsepower is reduced heat. So you don't want to spin things as fast. You don't want to compress or battle an intercooler and so on and so forth. So
right.
But yeah, that's how you determine.
Are there any plans to try and integrate the Demon170 into our flex fuel?
Who asked that?
That we talked to.
Oh, okay. Stay tuned.
Oh,
that's all I'll say. So
fascinating.
that's all I'll say right now. Stay tuned.
So if someone's chasing big power, then is it pretty much turbo is the way to go if you want that big power efficient setup?
It depends on what the vehicle's being used for.
If
so
it's,
the
if it's
rec,
purple.
But if it's purple, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, if it's purple. But all purple cars should be turboed.
They should.
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, our trend
as.
is pretty good. I think we have the most turbo purple cars. That's a new micro record. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Blowers do make sense for some people. And if you look at some of the fastest cars out there, they are still blowers and nitrous and so on and so forth. So turbos, I will tell you this, take more work from the end user. You have to learn how to drive them. You have to develop a plan of varying conditions. And, blowers are... Remy! Blowers are RPM based, right? So it's very easy to essentially get a vehicle to 60 foot and dial it in because it's constant. Turbos, there's variables, right? And that's where you really have to develop that. But once you get it, it's killer. I will tell you that, just like our shop car. I could produce that 60 foot anywhere because how smooth it was and because of the program we had in place. So as long as you're willing to put the time in it, it's kind of hard to beat turbos.
She was dialed.
Yeah, efficiency was there. She was dialed in. Like I said, you could duplicate it. It just requires a little bit more work to get there. And that's why you're seeing more and more of the big horsepower guys now starting to, for the longest time it was stock blowers with nitrous, but they were starting to realize to go fast, you really got to kind of explore and take that leap. Be ready to put the work in, but it can be done.
Okay, I like it.
What else we got?
Not much.
Not much.
No.
Okay.
Cams on a Hellcat, on a stock Hellcat.
Oh, yeah.
What could we see? Stock Hellcat just with a cam, maybe a pulley. What are possible gains out of that?
Yeah,
we really don't
did
talk
that
that much.
Yeah, cams, right? Because for the longest time, and especially sticking with the Hellcat platform, it was said that the Hellcat cam is great. There's no reason to change it because it was designed for boost. Well, yeah, it was. So what are the benefits of a cam? Comes down to kind of the same things you're doing by porting a blower is improving efficiency. So we can make more horsepower with less restriction. So generally our Satan staff camshaft that we have, we see on average a 2 to 3 pound boost drop, but power levels stay about the same. So what that allows you to do is then you can pull it down more to make more power, or if you do a cam and a ported blower at the same time, you are able to make, you lose the boost from the cam and you gain the boost from the ported blower. What you just made is a massively efficient setup. So, air charge temps and things don't rise in the same fashion as when you pulley down. For our customers that don't have access to E85 but would like to see, A50, 900, again, port the blower, put a cam in it, long tube headers, and you just made this vehicle efficient where we're still getting it to 15, 16 pounds of boost, but because of the improvement of the efficiency, you're now making A50, 900. So, if you like the sound, we can make a chop for you too, but that's the game, is you're improving the efficiency of it. And it just allows you to make more with less, and then take that step up to make even more at the same and given condition that you had before. So, it's one of those. The more you study, the more you research, the more capabilities that there are for it. So it's not a negative thing. It's just the reason we might shy people away is that there's cheaper ways or more cost-effective ways to generally get basic horsepower increases because it's very labor-intensive on the Hemi platform. So that's the I guess downside to it, is that it's very, very labor intensive, but the results are outstanding.
Absolutely, 100%.
Perfect. Anything else?
Yeah, a couple.
Okay. All right, perfect.
For our E85 customers, I don't think we've really ever talked about this much. So if you don't drive your car all that often, store it, whatever, what's like the shelf life for E85 in my tank? At what point should I say, okay, it's time to pull my drain my fuel or pull my injectors, clean them. Is sitting around for a month okay? When do I get sketchy?
Good question. So generally what I tell my customers is as long as you start the car and let it run idle for 5, 10, 15 minutes every couple weeks, you're okay. So what is happening? What is the big concern of E85 sitting? Well, it's basically alcohol, and alcohol doesn't mix well with water. When that happens, it actually turns into a gel, and that's kind of the thing you have to be concerned about. So naturally, by starting the car, letting the fuel pump run, it turns everything, moves it around, flows it out, so if there's any waters in the line, it gets burnt out at that time. But condensation as it sits build up, and then when you go to start it, it pushes that gel into things. So letting it run is enough. You don't have to physically drive it around. I personally wouldn't like to see a car sit for a month or longer with E85 in the tank. If so, I would pull the injectors out right away and clean them and try and empty that gas out. I do recommend is regular maintenance on E85 to clean them at least once a year if a vehicle is driven, if not twice a year if it doesn't get driven a lot. We do it on all our builds that sit for a while is just a make sure. You'd be surprised at what will happen to some of these, even the injectors designed for E85. The corrosion and it can kick in there and it can be cleaned up, but it can hit anybody. It doesn't matter if they're built for it or not. So 1 to 2 weeks, start the car, let it run. It can sit for a year that way if you do it before, it's going to run out of gas, but you can do that. But yeah, generally, if you're going to exceed a month, I would recommend to either when you get back, drain everything and clean it out, or change it out to pump gas and store it that way.
If you're doing something like that, would a catch can be beneficial to help catch the water vapors, anything like that may not be burned off?
Catch cans are just beneficial entirely. So what for those that don't understand what a catch can is or say it's bad, basically we have crankcase pressure. So from the factory they recirculate it back into the combustion chamber for emissions reasons. What a catch can does is instead of having those oil vapors go inside of your combustion chamber, it gives it a place to store it. So you're reducing the actual oil being reintroduced into the atmosphere. So thing you'll notice, and what the reason he's bringing up on these, storing is, water has to evaporate. When you have a cold engine and you start warming it up, condensation will build up on it. So unless you truly let it idle and hit operating temp and allow that to evaporate, catch cans are known to accumulate and catch condensation. We see all the time people will drain out their catch cans and it's milky and people go, oh, you blew your head gasket. No, it's the condensation mixing with the oil vapors. So it does help prevent that and give, again, that place to capture. So regardless of E85 or not, it is beneficial. I hear the question too, why don't they do it from the factory? Engineers have said they would love to, but it would give an area for other people to, another maintenance item where they have to empty these catch cans. So they know the end user will not do it and it becomes a negative. So they are coming more and more from the factory with air oil separators and things like that, but they're not going to be as good as an aftermarket system where you have to drain it out, which is also why in our catch cans we did put a drain on it to make it easier. So you're doing an oil change and you take the drain plug out, you open the valve and let it drain while you're doing your oil change. So convenient, but we do recommend it. All our big builds get them. The race cars get the vented ones because we just don't want it going in at all. Street cars that will produce good vacuum and stuff, you still can have the can, and like I said, a properly built catch can will prevent the oil from going in, and that's entirely what they're for. So,
are there benefits to a limited cam versus a locked cam? Going back to that cam question.
Oh, for VVT? So, getting in the technical side without getting too technical. So, what they mean by that is from the factory, modern Hemis have VVT cams, meaning we can rotate the cam separately to change, timing and such on the cam. Now, benefits to that are you can rotate it one way to optimize low to mid-range power, and then it, high RPM, rotate it the other way to optimize peak power. So it uses an oiling system to help maneuver it. So yes, you can optimize low to mid-range. We use them on, sometimes on NA cars that aren't too aggressive. They're great. The downside I have seen, because you are relying on oiling, is on super high horsepower cars. There's two things to consider. Oil pressure is crazy high, which these systems are not truly designed for. So, and generally on high horsepower applications, you want to make sure it stays that way. So I have seen some delays or issues in regards to the VVT maneuvering at very, very high horsepower applications. The other thing about it too is generally very high horsepower applications. We move that power band higher in the RPM, and to get a more aggressive profile, you do have to remove the VVT settings because naturally you got to have some play in it to be able to move back and forth. Aftermarket cams that utilize it, they limit how much you can move it compared to factory to allow for a little more aggressive. But the reality is, the most aggressive cams will be non-VVT based, so you'll have to lock it out. So ours, we go for that peak, we go for that big power, we lock our cams out. We understand the sacrifice down low, but there are other ways to make it up for our applications. But you know, it is one of those where can you do it? Yeah, you know, could you, should you? My shop car actually has a VVT cam in it, or you know, when it hit the motor, the 426 had it in there. And I saw about a 30-40 horsepower difference up top and down low when I played with it a little bit. But I probably could have made that up if I had a locked out cam. And with less wear, and probably could have utilized a little more RPM as well. So all application specific power goals, and it's not a negative thing. It's just more of a preference on where you want the power band to be. So good question though.
You want to do one more or two more?
Let's do one more,
Okay.
and then we'll save them for next week.
Now,
Rowdy.
back to the catch can. As they catch oil, do you need to add additional oil to the motor to compensate for the oil that's caught?
Well, if you have that much oil being caught in your catch can, you have a different problem. So generally we tell people that, you know, check their catch can every oil change. As they say, Remy, relax. Per the owner's manual, they allow up to 1 quart of oil being burned every 1,000 miles. So you should always keep an eye on your oil level regardless. But it's a vapor, it's not truly oil. So that's what you have to understand, is it's a vapor that collects on a screen or filter and then drips down. So you know, if you're filling a can that fast and it is truly oil, you have another problem on your hands. It's
Absolutely.
not, you know, so yes, you do need to keep your oil up to date, but check it every oil change. You know, some guys I know check it when they fill up on gas. You know, it's up to you, but definitely check the minimum of the oil change. A good motor is going to have very little oil vapors in there. It's not like it's a ton of it. So it doesn't mean just because you have a catch can that it is going to fill up, but if it is going to fill up, that means you're preventing that from going in the engine. So every oil change, you should be good. Colder weather conditions, you will see more because it's more condensation. So be conscious of that. But yep, that's pretty much it there. So all right, well, we'll wrap it up. Keep the questions coming. We'll do what we did and review them and bring them into next week. So as a recap, if you didn't see the whole video, go back to the beginning. We talked in depth on the Demon170 compound boosted by Helion, results of what we saw and the reasons why. This will hopefully help others out in making the decision and kind of understand a little better on how we do what we do and why we do it. And yeah, so thank you again for checking in. We'll see you guys next week.